WJBR HD3 Wilmington, W264BH Philadelphia. The new gospel music leader is Philly's favorite 100.7.
Great area. Great area. You are now tuned into the great area. Ain't black, ain't white, it's the great area.
Welcome into the gray area, everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm your host, Shari Nycole. I'm so happy to be chatting with you guys once again on this Sunday. Thank God he brought us all through. I hope everybody had a great week. And you all know the deal about the gray area. And if you don't, here's a little bit of a breakdown. In a world of extremes, taboos, and biases, it's often complicated to meet in the middle, or as I like to call it, the gray area. The gray area is where topics we avoid but need to tackle exist, but they lay dormant. So it's where people on both sides of an issue find understanding. The gray area is where we learn new things about ourselves and others. And what better way to do that than with two of my amazing guests for the evening, Grammy, Dove, and Emmy Award-winning producer Shannon Sanders, and R&B singer and mashup master Kevin Ross. I'm super excited to talk to them both. Can't wait. I got a jam-packed show for you guys today. And also for those who were at the top of the hour, for those who were tuned in at 7 p.m. Eastern, you heard something different. You heard a little theme song. You guys like my little theme song? I think it's dope. I think it's a bop. Shout out to the family, Elon Guy Beats and Conscious Dreamers, for my theme song. I'm very excited. I feel like, I'm official now because I got a theme song. So shout out to you guys. Thank you all so very much. And what you just heard was the Walls Group, one of my favorite songs, My Life. And I love that song because it's so liberating. And it's interesting because we're living in very liberating times, I would say, although we're living in very challenging times. We're looking at the first African-American woman VP candidate on the Democratic ticket. Her name is Kamala Harris. And I have to say, I'm really excited about this nomination. And, I didn't necessarily, to be honest, think that she was going to be the choice. But knowing that she is the choice, I am excited nonetheless. As a Black woman, it's always an honor and a privilege to be able to see another Black woman elevate in the way that she is doing. And so I implore all of those, especially my sisters out there, I implore all of us to be on one accord and to support her moves as best we can. And really collectively, we need to do that anyway. Whether it's Kamala Harris, whether it's your sister, whether it's your niece, whether it's your mother, grandmother, or auntie, or one of your friends. We need to be unified, and I think this is a great way for us to be able to practice that in a very, very real way. I feel like change happens when you have a collective conscience, and what better time to have a collective conscience as Black women than to see another Black woman shine and to support her up top. Now, this is where the gray area comes in, because let's keep it real, guys. There are times when we don't agree, okay? Ladies especially, we have a time sometimes, okay? But up top, we make it known that we support each other. And then if we have a grievance of some sort, guess what we can do? We can have a little meeting on the side, maybe go to lunch, go to dinner or something and hash it out. But up top, we show a united front. So I encourage you guys, look at this Kamala Harris situation and her elevation as an opportunity for all of us to learn how to continue to communicate effectively and to support each other. There are so many things that are happening in terms of slander as it relates to her and what she's trying to do in her nomination. And we want to make sure that, as Black brothers and sisters, that we support any of our sisters or brothers who are trying to do the right thing. So big ups to Kamala Harris. Thank you for the inspiration, sis. Hopefully I get to meet you one day. Hopefully I can have you on the gray area one day. Wouldn't that be fun? Shout out to my Instagram family. I pick a social media platform every show to kind of like let a little bit in on the show for the first 5 minutes. And then I make them go to the Philly's favorite app to watch the rest of the show. So don't get too comfortable, Instagram followers, because I'm going to drop you off right where I left you in about 5 minutes. And you can definitely listen live by downloading the Philly's favorite app. So make sure you do that, because I want to be fair to those who are listening live. Okay. My Philly family listening live on Philly's favorite 100.7. So make sure you guys tune in. And if you want to engage with me in further conversation about Kamala Harris or anything that I'm going to talk about today, whether it's hot topics or with my guests, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Shari, SHARI _Nycole, NYCOLE. That's on Instagram. and that's on Twitter. So make sure you guys follow me. Another interesting story that's going on right now, I can't say this enough, guys. Vote, 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 and vote some more. What we're seeing with the USPS is nothing short of scary. And so if you have been following the news, you would understand that our president is threatening to retract some funding from the USPS, which could ultimately affect those who are filing for absentee ballots and things of that sort. So we need to be very, very diligent about not only voting, but also informing ourselves on what's going on in process. It's very important to know what's going on. So I encourage everybody, vote, vote, vote like your life depended on it. Please, please do it. If you do nothing else. And I'm not here to tell you who to vote for, but I am here to tell you that you need to exercise your right to vote, because there are people who died, who gave their lives to ensure that we had the opportunity to do so. And so I implore you guys, vote, vote, speak up. Because if you don't vote, I don't want to hear any complaining. Let's be honest. If you don't vote, if you don't participate in political process, you actually don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to conversations about what happens in this country and really your community. So I encourage everybody to vote. It's super, super, super important. I'm just really encouraged everybody on today, and I know we're still waiting for, a lot of us are still waiting for Congress to get off vacation, which is interesting how they like to go on vacation when there are things that need to get done to ensure that this everything that needs to happen with COVID relief actually gets passed. And so for those who are still waiting for that unemployment COVID relief money to go back to somewhat of what it was, which is now will be $400. I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you. For those who are waiting for some of the other stipulations that are in place with some of the legislation that we're all waiting for, I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you, but understand that on the other side of this, God has some great things. So everybody just really band together. This is a time for all of us to really, really, really be unified on a lot of different levels. If you know somebody out there that needs a little bit of a hand and you can give it, give it. That's what this is about. These are times when we can really, really explore our opportunity to serve and figure out ways in which we can serve. So I really, really am excited about all the things that God is doing in my life and in your lives as well. Don't get caught up in what didn't work out. Focus on what can, what did, and what will. And with that said, I want to, before I bring him on, Shannon Sanders, I mentioned him earlier. And what's interesting about Shannon, okay, he's my first guest. He's won Grammys. He's won a Dove Award and 2 Emmys. It's interesting. This dude is like all over the place. And so I find him to be quite fascinating. He just executive produced a new project with Fisk University, actually, the Fisk University Jubilee. It's Celebrate Fisk, the 150th anniversary album. And one of the songs that they did, I'm going to play for you right now. It's an adaptation of John Legend and Common's hit record, Glory. Take a listen. That was Glory by a gentleman who I have the pleasure of having on the line, Grammy, Dove, Emmy Award-winning producer, Shannon Sanders. How are you, sir?
Awesome. How about yourself?
I am good. And what's so crazy is I got so caught up in the song, I almost forgot that I had an interview.
You know what's the trip, though? Like, I did, too. Like, I was sitting here listening to while you were playing it. And it's funny because, I'll tell you something about making records. It's like, it's a lot like cooking. Like, it's really hard to taste your own food, really. You really can't really appreciate it the same way, just because you know everything that went in it. And, and it's the same thing. It takes a while to be able to hear your own song, your own records and stand back. Enough time has to pass. Yeah. And I think enough time has passed now that I can actually hear it and not be critical of it and not be, and I see it as something that I'm working on, but see it as a completed piece of art and just stand back and just look at it. And I think that may have been the first time just now hearing you play it. That may have been the first time that I was able to do that. So thank you for that.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing the music. And I can definitely relate. I edit videos and I produce as well. So I understand you have to do to kind of put effort into something. And then all of a sudden, you have a tough time looking back at it for a while. You have to kind of step away from it for a while to come back to it. So I'm very, very grateful that I could provide the platform, and I'm grateful that you provided the music. So because it's It's an absolutely beautiful adaptation, I have to say. And you've worked with some huge, no problem. You've worked with some huge artists, India Reid, John Legend, to name a couple. And I wanted to know kind of what's the biggest difference producing for individual artists of that caliber versus a choir like you did with this Fisk University project?
I got to tell you, well, there's a big difference because, honestly, I'll be perfectly honest with you. With this project, we didn't know we were making a record. That was recorded actually for archival purposes. Yeah, it was a show, like that's why you heard applause. Yeah, it was recorded for archival purposes. So we didn't know. It was years, like that was recorded in 2017, 16, 17. So we didn't realize that it was going to be a record. But it's amazing, though. Look at the timing, like, to just think about what the song says.
Perfect.
And it's originally, like you said, by John Legend and Common for the Selma soundtrack, and they actually won an Oscar for that song. But it's incredible that and we did it just because it's an awesome song, and we wanted to celebrate it. Those brothers had just won an Oscar, and so we just wanted to do a song. We felt like it would be a great one to do with the Jubilee Singers, simply for the sake of the performance. It was that. That's it. So it was just in the vault until and then it's so many of those. It was 2 years of that concert that was recorded, and it was like, man, you know what? There's enough great stuff here to make a record. It was just so much magic those nights. Let's turn it into a record, and so that's what happened. So fast forward to where we are now in the Black Lives Matter movement. It's crazy because who'd have thought that the song would be so relevant again? It was originally done in reflection of our original civil rights movement, but who would have thought that it would also speak to the current civil rights movement going on? So really grateful to be a part of that, and just to have been, to just be a part of that whole process and be a part of this moment. But
sure. And it really speaks to your gift too, Shannon, because we look at this record and it became a different record when you guys covered it too, and I think that's important for people to understand. I mean, that's the beauty in music, and that's the beauty in really taking care of the music. It evolves and it takes on a different life every time, and so I want to applaud you and your team for really giving this song a different set of legs. It's a really great record.
Well, Thank you, and shout out to Derek Minor. Also, I'm singing and I'm
legend.
It, but that's Derek is a monster. But those are Derek's verses. So although I sang John's part, Derek raps his own verses from a song of his called "Stranger." So, but again, it took on its own thing. Really, a lot of it is just because it's live. It was for an audience, and so there was so much exchange, so much energy exchange between performers and the audience, between the musicians and the Jubilee Singers, and Derek, myself. It was just so much energy that couldn't help but be captured on tape. That's why, and you know what? It's the same thing that we talked about a second ago. When you step back from something. Although it was recorded for archival purposes, and you think, okay, cool, we got it. We just, as a, just to remember, just to say we got it. But then to be able to step back and come back to it a couple of years later and press play and be like, you know what? There's something to this. Like, it really is something to this that just, we couldn't replicate or duplicate if we tried. It's just something here that speaks to now.
I love it. And I'm going to circle back to the project in a bit, but I did want to pivot a little bit. I was looking over your bio, and it was quoted that if someone asked you in particular, how you would see yourself, you'd say hungry. And I want to ask you, as we're living in very challenging times right now, how has this, pandemic and all this social and racial unrest that we're seeing enhanced that hunger that you have?
It's been, it's really given me something to aim my creativity at. Doesn't feel like target practice. It feels like it's live. It feels like Nina Simone said it best. And not to quote her verbatim, but she said something to the effect of artistry should reflect the times. So whenever you think, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, James Brown, and what that meant in the moment. When you think Aretha Franklin and how she covered, because it was actually a cover of Otis Redding. Respect is a cover. That was originally Otis Redding. So for Aretha to cover Respect in the middle of the women's rights movement meant so much. And I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, to just write songs and, so many songs that just talk about, kind of what's happening in, just day to day is one thing. But to have a reason to write, to have a reason to sing, to have a log thrown on that creative fire, that's what it feels like right now. In the midst of the pandemic, and then simultaneously Black Lives Matter movement, all these things happening at one time, it's a lot to speak to. People need hope. People are, so much is changing. There's so much in flux and so many things shifting. More than anything, people just got to stay inspired.
Yeah,
so
they do.
If you're somebody like me that loves to create from that space, we've had a lot of success with India creating from that space of, how do you make records that are inspirational, if you will, motivational, intentional. There's a word, intentional. Yeah. But at the same time have commercial appeal. And we spent a lot of time talking about that. We spent a lot of time working on that. And that's what it feels like. How to make things that are relevant but at the same time timeless. How to make things that will speak to you forever. Timeless themes, but at the same time sounds that you want to hear right now. So it's
interesting you bring that up, Shannon. It's interesting you bring that up, and not to cut you off, but you're right in line with where I wanted to go with this Celebrate Fisk project. And for those who are just tuning in, I'm chatting with award-winning music producer. His name is Shannon Sanders. He's executive produced the new album Celebrate Fisk, the 150th anniversary album. And I listened to the entire thing, and I have to tell you, I mean, you guys go from traditional gospel to Negro spirituals to bluegrass. You got like a country vibe in there. You finish with glory. I mean, you're all over the spectrum, but there's still a unifying musical tie with everything. I know that you said this wasn't supposed to necessarily be a project that was released in this way, but when you think about all the music that encompassed what this was, kind of how did you guys put these pieces together?
Well, it makes sense that it would be cohesive because this record is reflective of 2 years of concerts, and it's something that we do. I'm co-musical director of Jubilee Singers with Dr. Paul T. Kwame for a concert that we produce every year. So we've done it 5 years, and so what this record is a compilation of the first 2 years. The first 2 years were recorded for archival purposes. So that's what it was. So it makes sense that it would be cohesive because the concert, it was really more of just a set list for the show. It wasn't supposed to be a track listing for a record. They were supposed to be songs that worked with and for the artists that agreed to perform with the singers. So it made sense. And then it was the same musicians both years. And so there was just a lot of cohesion built into it. Organically, but I think a lot of it was approached, and we spent time arranging those songs and bringing the arrangements to the artists and to the Jubilee Singers. When I mean bring them to them, just in terms of making them accessible, musically accessible. Like, where do you want it to sit? What key do you want it to sit? Let's figure out how this should feel. Like, let's envision these songs another way. And let's put them where we want to put them for a performance, not for a record. It just happened to work out. So we'll just call it will of God. We won't call it chance. I won't even disrespect God's will by calling it chance or luck or just saying it worked out. It ain't even like that. It was by design. We just didn't know it. But
I love it.
Yes, ma'am.
So Shannon, when we think about HBCUs have been such a hot topic, especially recently, and with everything that's going on, they're finally getting a light shown on them that I haven't seen necessarily in quite some time. And with that said, what was the importance for you in tying the music with this project to the historic mission of Fisk University?
Being in Nashville and Fisk being here too, we know what a light it is. You know, we probably know more about the history of Fisk than most people do, just because, you know, it's here in the city. But it means a lot.
And did you go to HBCU, Shannon? Did you go to HBCU? Did we lose Shannon? Hey, Shannon, did I lose you? I think we may have lost him. Hey, Max, shoot me a text. Max is my board op, everybody. He keeps me honest. He keeps me honest every show. So we'll see if Shannon dropped out. For those who are just tuning in, you are tuned into the Great Area with Shari Nycole. I was just having a great conversation with award-winning producer. His name is Shannon Sanders. He put together an amazing project called Celebrate Fisk, the 150th anniversary album. It's an amazing record for those who have not heard of it. You definitely want to get it. I was listening to it. It literally went from like traditional gospel to Negro spirituals, country music, everything across the board. CeCe Winans also does a record on there called Blessed Assurance, which I just thought was absolutely amazing. And so make sure you guys stream that, download that. I'm hoping we get Shannon back. There he is.
You know what?
Hey, Shannon.
Something's going on. Something crazy going on with my phone. I don't know what it is. I don't update
it
what
happens,
it is.
Man. It happens. It happens.
Yeah, it does this thing. But I definitely went to an HBCU. I went to Tennessee State University, and I marched in the esteemed aristocrat of bands while I was there. And so I know the importance of an HBCU. My son graduated from Morehouse a couple years ago.
Cool.
So
Congratulations to him.
Thank you. So I definitely know the importance and the power of an HBCU. You know, for a long time, it's the only place where we could go to be educated. But I've just seen firsthand, especially with my son, I just saw where, you know, how he needed to be there. You know, he was a track star, and it was crazy because he went to Morehouse, he ran, and another school up north called him, and you know, he went up there and ran, and you know, small school, they gave him a scholarship, did the whole thing. You know, for track, that's a big deal. So went up there, they put the whole team on his back. Like his first track meet, he posted the third fastest time in school history. You know, so they put the whole team on his back and then overworked him, and so he pulled a hamstring. So between, you know, he was still hurt between semesters when it was time to re-up and reload that scholarship. The coach got squirrely, you know, and school got weird, you know, and all of a sudden.
Not the squirrely coach. I can't stand the squirrely coach.
Oh, man, look. My baby hurt, you know. My baby hurt because you done overworked him. And then now it's time to re-up, you know. It's time to re-up on this.
Now you don't want nothing. You don't want to say nothing.
Oh, man, look, I can't get the man on the phone. So it's like, okay. So my son, he was, you know, he came home for Christmas break, and, you know, he was trying to get all this straight. He was like, you know, he came, he's like, Dad, I want to go back to Morehouse. I said, let's go. And we just pulled up. We went to Atlanta the next day and started the process. We went to the track coach, you know, and he really should have stayed at Morehouse. It was what it was, but we went, we talked to the track coach, started to explain. The coach cut him off. He said, son, look, no need to explain. He said, look, he's like, this is where you need to be. That right there says it all. And coach said, look here, I don't care if you run or not. This is where you need to be. I don't care if you come back here and run or not. This is where you need to be. And so that right there almost moved me to tears because it's so true. They know, here he is, he's a black track coach. And shout out, you know, but at the same time, there are a lot of, don't get me wrong, a lot of great white teachers and people that are in support. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, here's a man who knew the struggles and knew what it was to be young, black, and male in America. And he already knew. He had already heard this story too many times. And he was like, this is why this place exists. This school exists for people like you, to develop people like you. Come on back home. And so that's what he did. And he graduated, with honors, you know, and he was so serious when he got back, and it meant so much more to him when he got back, and he really bought in when he went back. And that's the thing. That's why these places exist, because they isolate us so that we can heal in places where we're hurt. Just so we can heal and develop in places where we're underdeveloped, you know, and so we can develop. And that's what it is, just so we can contribute in a greater way to the conversation and to this American configuration we have more to contribute when we develop ourselves. And that's why we have to isolate ourselves to develop ourselves so that we can contribute more to the whole. And that's what it's about. And I saw it firsthand within myself. I can't tell you, how many times I didn't go to class, how much I didn't go to class, but I went to band. I went to all the music classes. How many Hey, I did that. I did that. But if it wasn't in the music building, I ain't want no parts of it. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've been put on academic probation and band director go get me out. Son, you got to go to class. I'm prof, Prof, about this. Hey, Prof, about this life. Yes, son, I know, but you got to go to class, right? You got to.
But look, Shannon, after all that, you have done amazing things, and I hate to let you go. I got Kevin on my other line, but, I thank you so much for your gift and sharing your story, because that should inspire a lot of people. It doesn't end the way it starts. You got to keep pushing forward. And, Shannon, you have a new album, Celebrate Fisk, the 100th anniversary album. It's an amazing album. Let people know how they can stay connected with you.
ShannonSanders.com. Everything is there. You can find out more about me. My social media handles are there. And Fisk University, Fisk Jubilee Singers, Derek Minor, you can find out all of that there. But yeah, definitely check out the Fisk Jubilee Singers. I'm not sure what their handles are, but if you go to Fisk University website, they are the football team at Fisk. So you can find them easily. And thank you for having me. Thank you for shining a light on this project, and thank you for having me. And it's been fun.
No problem. It is my pleasure. Shannon Sanders, thank you so very much. And you're always welcome to come back on the Gray Area. Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you.
All right, guys. Well, I got my one of my favorite singers coming up next. His name's Kevin Ross. I call him a mashup master. I'm gonna play a record of his from his new EP that I absolutely love. It's called God is a Genius. And when I get back, he's gonna be on the line. That's God is a Genius by one of my favorite voices, Kevin Ross, who's on the line. Kevin, what's going on?
What's going on?
You know what's crazy? I'm so happy to have you in the Gray Area with me, Shari Nycole. And, it's funny because I have produced segments with you featured on other shows for quite some time. And I'm just so honored and grateful to finally be able to interview you myself. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. Listen, thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing this platform. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my honor. First of all, God is a Genius. I've been blasting that song. I'm kind of embarrassed a little bit because I'm kind of obsessed with it. I don't know if that's something that is still acceptable in these days, but the song I just love it, man. It's just, if I had a drop top, I would just drive on down the street and play that nonstop until I got where I was going and came back. I love that record. Record.
Thank you so much. That was really the purpose of it. I just wanted for people to really feel good. I wanted the vibe to feel like, you could just roll the windows down. Or if you had a drop top, you could do that. Yeah. So I'm glad you got that feel from it.
Yeah, it's a vibe. And Kevin, a lot of people are very familiar with you from your music, your singles and things of that nature, but also from your mashups, which I just think are just extraordinary. When did you realize, and for those who are not familiar with the mashup, it's basically like the picture looks like the Brady Bunch squares, and it's the same person in every square, and they're singing a different part, and it's like they do a whole song. Kevin's the best at it. I'm going on record saying right now that Kevin Ross is the best at it. So with that being said, when did you realize, okay, I have something special here? And then for those who may not understand, what is the process? How long does it take to put one of those together?
Well, the process, it takes about a good 8 hours. So it could take a whole work day for me to really get it done. Because if I start and if I mess up at a minute and 30, I got to start all over again. Because it's
what?
It's straight through. Yeah. Yeah.
So basically you have to be perfect. You have to be
not even perfect
singer.
But you just, not even a perfect singer. Because trust me, if I was a perfect singer, it'd take me an hour. But since God made me beautifully and wonderfully made flawed,
yes, God,
I gotta work with what I got. You know what I'm saying?
But it's super dope. It's super dope. And I was listening to an interview you did. It's probably a couple months ago, and you were talking about somebody is it your father who's a pastor? Is somebody a pastor in your family?
No, my father's a deacon. He's a deacon.
Your father's a deacon. I know it was somebody that was
yeah.
deep-seated in the church. My
Come
father's
on.
a deacon too. Hey Don Welton, I got to give my dad a shout out. He just texted me. He's saying good show. So he's I know what it's like to be the child of a deacon. They're very structured. And with that said, you know, with your deep spiritual roots, you know, how has that anchored you throughout the course of your career so far?
It's a lot for me to keep my sanity. You know what I mean, which is very important, especially in the business, how things waver so much. You can have highs, you can have lows. People come and go. You know, situations come and go. But, you know, God is faithful and he's unconditional. His love, you know, for us is unconditional. And, you know, I feel that and I'm grateful for it. And so for that, you know, since he never, you know, he never flakes out on me, he never disappoints me. I always got to keep him at the helm, you know what I mean, as my source of strength. Yeah. So I'm truly humbled by that and grateful that my father, you know, even committed to becoming a deacon and really creating some kind of, you know, structure, you know what I mean, for the family. And even though we may not have went every Sunday as much as he did, you know, he really created this level of discipline within the family that we still stick to this day. And, you know, in many different ways.
And speaking of discipline, you are not, I mean, you're an amazing singer, but you're also very studied in what you do. So you're also a scholar, for those who are unfamiliar. Kevin has a very rich educational background when it comes to music, and which says to me, you take your craft extremely seriously. Because there's a lot of people, Kevin, that's you know, people might get upset with me. But I feel like music is taking a nosedive in some areas, and so I'm very encouraged by the fact that you take your craft very seriously. You know, and with that said, and having a father who was a deacon and having that level of structure, was there ever any loving resistance you received from your family when you said, "Hey, I don't want to necessarily be a gospel artist or anything like that. I love music. I want to move in this direction." Did you ever experience that?
You know what? I didn't experience too much as far as within like the conflict of gospel and R&B, more so than just actually me pursuing a music career. You know, now you know, my direct like mother and father were very, very supportive of my wild and crazy dreams. But, you know, of course, like aunts and uncles and cousins, you know, we had conversations and they're just like, you know, but what if it doesn't work out? What if? And I was like, I don't live off of that. I'm not wired like that. You know what I mean? I was just like, you know, God told me something different a long time ago. You know what I mean? And I knew that I was set off, you know, in a path that I couldn't stop. You know, and who's to say that this path, as it pertains to what I'm doing now, won't be the very thing that leads me into the next phase and the next season of my life. So for that reason, I have to be obedient. And I got to be loyal to the cause. So like you said, you know, I had to dig deep and really become a student of the game, respect my predecessors, understand, you know, where I'm living at as far as within the present, and really make way for the future as well. So, you know, it's definitely a cool experience. So I'm grateful for those that told me no, that were closest to me. But I'm more grateful for those who stuck with me no matter what. Yeah.
And you mentioned the what ifs and you know, realistically speaking, a what if is going to happen to everybody at some point, especially if you're positioned in your purpose properly. So with that said, was there ever a what if that happened to you? It could be personal or professional that kind of, once you got through it, it reinvigorated, you know, your career or even your personal evolution.
Oh, yeah. So the crazy thing is I started my music career maybe 10 years ago. And so I was, you know, in Atlanta, and so I had a little bit of money saved up and just, you know, doing odd-end jobs and stuff like that. And money just kind of got low after the first maybe 2.5 to 3 years. So I ended up having to stay with my mentor, you know. And I remember during that time, it felt as though everything was kind of crashing down. But something within my spirit was just telling me like something's around the corner, right? And so I was like, God, like, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to tell me right now? Because I don't know what it is, you know. But I just felt so confident in the fact that it was like whatever's going on right now won't last, right? I knew that it was temporary, and I had joy in that.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't know what was around the corner still. It didn't scare me. I wasn't fearful. So I knew that God was operating in a different way, right? So with that being said, maybe I want to say it took a year after I moved in with my mentor for things to really start coming together. Within that time, I was able to open up for Maxwell. I was able to open up for Neo. I had a Glade commercial that came out. Like, God was really showing out, and he was showing off. And so what I realized is that when I turned the corner, I saw a vacant lot, right? And so God gave me some seeds, and he said, start planting. Start planting. And he said, when you're planting, don't stop and look back. I'll tell you when to look back, right? So I'm looking at the lot. I got these seeds in my hand, and I'm like, well, okay, all right. I have nothing to lose because everything that made me comfortable, my place, everything was stripped from underneath me. So I kept planting seeds. And so, like I said, a year came to pass and all of these things happened. And then God said, turn around. And I seen all of these flowers and this fruit, and it was so colorful and it was vibrant. And God said, this is your territory. This is the territory that I promised you. It's yours, right? And so he said, I could have gave you houses. I could have gave you everything that you needed as far as on this territory already when you turned the corner. He said, but for you in particular, it's going to mean that much more for you to build it from the ground up. I needed for you to feel the soil. I needed for you to feel the land. And I needed for you to understand that what you create on this land is given by me, right? So that was the encouraging moment to understand, just because, you see nothing or it feels vacant, that doesn't mean that God isn't working. I believe in divine orchestration. So, divine orchestration, it has more so to do with other people than yourself. You could be very ready and very prepared for the moment, but that doesn't mean that God has to work on 5 to 10 other people within that moment in order for that to meet up, to happen. When you think about certain things that happen in your life, it's not a coincidence. God has to work on each and every one of us for that particular special moment to even take place. So for that, I understand that I have to be patient because it has less to do with me and more so to do with his orchestration and everyone coming together.
That was great, Kev. Thank you for sharing that. I definitely got something out of it, and I hope those who are listening got something out of that as well. That was amazing, and really kind of falling in line with what you're saying. It's a lot of people during this particular time, and especially a lot of your peers in the entertainment industry, they may be looking at vacant lots right now. We're living in very, very challenging times where a lot of things have been stripped away from a lot of people. How are you kind of handling this particular season? And, what can you say to those who assume that entertainers, they're fine. They don't have anything to worry about, because I think that's a misconception. A lot of people think, because people are celebrities, that they don't have bills and that they don't have obligations and they aren't getting hit with this as well. But how are you handling this season?
Just because you're visible doesn't mean that you're fiscally sustained, and so or financially sustained. So for me, I'm okay. I'm good because I'm a saver. And, just kind of going back to the experience that I had, years ago, maybe, like 7 years ago now, that moment allowed for me to understand the value of money, right? Just because something is successful and I see it in my bank account doesn't mean that I have to live up to the expectations of society, right? So I have a #1 record with Long Song Away, and I wrote it and produced it, and people were like, man, you need to get a new car. And I was like, well, there's nothing wrong with this one. It's still running. Yeah. I bought it, straight out. Why would I go into a situation like that? And so for people to understand, I wouldn't say all, but I would say at least 60 to 70% of entertainers, they spend their money to keep up with a certain aesthetic of living, to show their status of success. And so when something like this hits, they have a lot of unfinished business. So there was a lot of money that they couldn't get. So they have a lot of overhead that they have to pay for.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are hurting right now as it pertains to the creative world because they make their living as far as touring, especially if you're an artist, a singer, a rapper, or dancer, musicians, all of us alike. That took a big blow from out of us as it pertains to performing and how we made our living. So with that being said, the one thing that I will encourage creatives to do is to not sit around and to wait. You have to meet God halfway. And I think that's one of the things that I always abide by. You have to be creative. You know, that's the thing that he blessed us with. So, for example, for me, if I know that I can't do shows, if I know that I can't get out there and touch the public, I created a format called the Mashup Show, which I do every Monday night at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live. And I have interviews with different, creative celebrities, musicians, friends, or whatever the case may be. And it's just a very relaxed format, but it allows for my fan base to have a little bit of consistency. And with that, you're able to, thank God with social media, you're able to monetize. You're able to continue to be within the public eye without putting yourself at risk or anyone that you love and care about at risk as well. So it's being creative and finding different outlets in order for you to, kind of plant those seeds. I think that, to me, it feels like, not 7 years ago, but it feels like, something reminiscent of it as it pertains to saying, okay, I know how to plant seeds. So I encourage everybody to, get down in your territory and plant those seeds. And you may not have an immediate return, and that's okay to not have an immediate return, but you continue to plant those seeds so that when it is time to reap that harvest within your season, you have enough seeds planted for there to be some form of an overflow or some form of just a healthy reaping versus you sowing this one seed and just keep watering this one seed. Plant multiple seeds, while you still have the time to, because it feels like within this climate, we're going to be in this for quite some time. So we have to adjust for sure.
You're absolutely right. And one of the seeds you've planted amongst your multiple seeds is this new EP. Tell me a little bit about this particular project.
Yes, Audacity Volume 2. It came out this past Friday. It is available on all DSPs and social platforms and also on iTunes. But this is really based on, just my storyline now. I'm an independent artist. I left a major label, just having the boldness to create my own lane, to create my own future. You know what I mean? With God's engineering. And so I just wanted to make great vibes, to make people feel good. Hence, God is a genius, not believing in coincidence. And the crazy thing, as far as with AV2, it couldn't have came at a better time. The messaging, the energy, the love that's within it. They're love songs, but I want for people to understand, though I'm an R&B singer, I'm a Christian man first. God. But with that being said, it's a lot of songs about love. My job as a R&B creative is to make people feel good, to allow for them to be inspired, allow for them to think, to spark up some level of conversation. And I believe that the series within Audacity does that. So I encourage everybody to go and check out Audacity. If you want those great feels like God is a genius or I Do or Salvation, which is definitely an ode to God and just to love in general. So, it's some great vibes on there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned love because I wanted to ask you, faith in love seems to be one of the central themes of this project and some of the other songs that you've done in the past. Was there ever a moment in your life where love let you down and redefined how you chose to fight for it moving forward?
When love let me down and I had to redefine it to fight for it. You know what? I learned a long time ago when I was in college not to put my faith in human beings. And, as it pertains to, I was a 17-year-old kid going to, Boston, Massachusetts. And, I was like, well, I'm already going to church. Let me find a church home. And within that church home, we're at Berkeley College of Music, so we do jazz, and I'm this aspiring R&B singer. And so, with that being said, you want to get into the choir, and people start chattering and clamoring as it pertains to, well, he sings R&B, and you can't sing R&B and serve the Lord at the same time, and he's a heathen, and X, Y, and Z, And so for that, it didn't make me feel welcome. It didn't make me feel. I felt disappointed at the fact that it's like, out of all the places, where I was supposed to feel safe, I feel the most targeted. You know what I mean? And so I stopped going. I stopped going to that church, and I just stopped going to church, period, for quite a minute as far as within college, because I created this disconnect, and I was just like, nah, I'm not messing with that. Like, they don't understand whatever. And so honestly, it really took one of my friends to say that, your faith doesn't, your faith is not within the church or within the people or the pastor or the deacon or the bishop or whomever is there. Your faith is through God. It's about a personal relationship. Your personal relationship with him. The commonality of church is that each and every one of us has our own unique relationships. And the joy of it is that we can celebrate and worship him together, right? The fellowship of having that common bond and say, you love God, I love God too. Okay, he did this for you. Well, he did this for me. Hey, he dope, right? So that's the whole kind of, the format of it. But of course, we're human beings, so we start to twist it. It just kind of deviated into something else, and so that was one way of me just kind of getting back to my personal relationship with God, because at a certain point I was just so discouraged and just disenchanted with the church, and honestly, my faith was in the wrong place. I was looking at people, and I wasn't looking towards God.
Wow, that's interesting, and I have friends in the industry who sing R&B music who kind of have that similar story, and the beauty in that is that you found a way back to what the real core of why you wanted to worship in the first place, why you wanted to go to church in the first place. And some people don't find that. What do you make of artists? Keke Wyatt comes to mind. I love her voice.
Yeah.
Who have really been able to kind of, and Kelly Price as well, who have been able to kind of function really well in R&B space, and then, kind of really creep over into the gospel space and do well and be taken seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. I think if you have the ability to live in both realms, that's amazing, because that's what we need. I truly believe that within the industry that people believe that there's so many dark secrets, but on the other hand, there are agents of change. There are secret agents of change within every genre of music. You have somebody like a Tori Kelly, that's an agent of change for pop music, right? You have an agent of change as far as within, like you said, R&B with Kelly Price and Keke Wyatt. Yes, we could sing about love, but we could still give glory and honor to the kingdom. You know what I mean? And it's about bringing people in, right? Because if you don't know that you're sick, if you don't know that you're hurting, if you don't know that you're dying, right? How is anyone able to reach you, right? So it's up to those agents of change to say, okay, I like R&B music, but theirs feels a little different. Theirs is a little, to the left or to the right, but it does something to me. Let me dig a little bit deeper into them. They talk about God a lot. Why? Why do they talk about God a lot? Let me actually start to look into this, right? Because we understand the habits of people, right? It's about, people follow what influencers do, right? Why are they successful? What makes them tick? And if you continue to look towards God, they're going to start to look too. We all need to be in rehabilitation as it pertains to church, and rehabilitation as it pertains to strengthening our relationship with God. But for those, there's more people in the world that don't know than that do. And so instead of us feeding, feeding dark energy into the world, we need to bring more light into it, and in as many places as we possibly can. And not to, have this level of exclusion to say that, I love the Lord and I only am supposed to do gospel music. It's like, no, our job is to spread the word as far and as wide as we possibly can and digest the message as easy and simple as possible so that I can actually shake hands with these people to say, if you're having a hard time, do you know that God loves you? Do you know that you have somebody that's looking out for you, that's waking you up every morning? No one ever thinks about that. In the midst of this chaos that we're in, the racism is at an all-time high now. Racial tensions are just, it's at its threshold, and people are wondering why. Why would God do something like this? And then I always question them and say, God's given us grace and mercy by allowing for this world to continue to spin, by all of the evil and by all of the darkness that we have within, each of us, you know what I mean? Like, we come from the earth. We come from this sin. He could be through with us, but that's just not how God rolls. It's unconditional love. He loves us, through it all. And so with that, I take that as a blessing. I take that as grace. He allows for us to be able to work it out amongst ourselves versus being the Alpha and Omega that he is, to say that you guys don't get it. You've never gotten it. Away with this earth completely. And everything that we've known and loved Kevin. And built could all go away at an instant. But it's his love for us that allows for this earth to sustain, for us to fight for the things that we want to fight for.
You know what, Kevin? There's no better way to close this show out. I love you. I think you're amazing. As I shut this thing on down before they kick me off the air, let people know how they can keep in touch with you and purchase your music.
Absolutely. At Kevin Ross Music on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure that you download Audacity Volume 2. Once again, that is Kevin Ross Music. Or you can actually find more information at kevinrossmusic.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin. And I'm going to have you back soon. I appreciate you. And thank you all so very much for listening to another round and entering into the gray area. I'm your host, Shari Nycole. You can follow me on Instagram at SHARI_NYCOLE. See you guys next week on Philly's Favorite 100.7 FM.
Gray area.